Greetings, friends. We are live again on the Best Coast Sports Connection. As always, we're here at McGregor's in Mission Valley. Andy Bishop, your host, along with Brian Vilvin, my co-host. Hello, sir.
Hello, Andy. How you doing?
I'm in good spirits this week.
That's
Episode
good.
number 6, you know?
Yeah, we had 3 Padre wins in a row, followed by a couple of tough losses. But more importantly, the BCSC is on to episode 6 and chugging along, baby.
Yeah, surviving and thriving.
Yeah.
And Thomas Conroy, our steady producer in the corner over here.
Guys.
Hello.
Keep it going.
The first week he was producer extraordinaire, and now he's the steady producer. Is that a demotion, Thomas? Just kidding. Thomas, you are so awesome.
Yes.
We couldn't do this without
Thank
you.
you both for continuing to do this for me. We're slowly getting the momentum up and running here.
I'm having fun. Each week is more fun than the previous.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I love
We
it.
started during the one of the more dead seasons of sports in July, and we're now approaching my favorite time of year, the fall, where, of course, you have the NFL starting, Major League Baseball postseason coming up in October. And then there's those other sports starting, the NHL and the NBA, so, hard to beat.
MLB postseason. That's something we haven't haven't been involved in much over the last decade or so.
Well,
Do you think it's happening this year, Andy? Coming in hot.
I looked at the Padres schedule for the remainder of August. This was 3 days ago on Saturday after they won that third straight against Colorado.
They
And
dangled
I'm
that little hope in front of us.
Like,
Yep.
We're beating a team that's pretty much owned us this year in Colorado.
Yeah.
Pretty handily in most of those games, and you get that optimism flowing through you. It's like, maybe by the end of August, if we're flirting 4 or 5 games out of the wild card, then maybe we get hot in September.
Yep.
And then Sunday and Monday happened, where our bullpen blew up on us.
Our
which
bullpen
has
went
been
bullpen.
Part of the story of the
Yeah.
year. Okay, go back to the start of the season if we can.
Yeah.
We really didn't know how this year was going to turn out.
Yeah.
Coming off a 66-win season last year, we signed Machado, but we knew our pitching across the board might be suspect.
Yep.
So here we are, right in the dead of August during the dog days. What's your assessment of our pitching this year?
Well, the interesting thing about that is at the beginning of the year, the only thing that I thought was a guarantee is that the bullpen would be reliable. Because it's been reliable
Always.
for our entire lives. Like, I cannot remember a time, and we used to always play games against teams that they have these terrible, unreliable bullpens. I was like, I can't relate. That can't be us because we always have lockdown bullpens. I just thought Balsley's a magician back there, and I still think he is. But that is the one area where I thought we would be solid and not have to worry. And it's literally been our least consistent portion of the team, kind of our Achilles heel for the 2019 Padres, and I did not see that coming at the beginning of the year. I think the starters have been about what you can expect. We have about 10 guys who are all trying to see if they can be major league pitchers, and they've had some flashes of brilliance. They've also had some rough outings, but that's going to happen with a super young staff.
Sure.
The bullpen is the area where it has been an absolute struggle all year long.
Yeah, frustrating. I mean, especially when it maybe didn't seem so bad in the early, first month or two. But when you get into these tight games, you've just seen we just don't have any consistency there. We brought up a couple young guys, a Reyes, a Munoz, and we have a couple guys that can throw 98, 99, 100, but they just can't consistently hit their spots.
Yep.
So I have zero idea who's going to be our 7th, 8th, 9th inning guys next year. Obviously, you think we still have Yates at the back end of the bullpen, but it is just such a mystery at this point.
Well, Melinda wants us to give
Oh.
a shout out to Donnie Wall on the 98 World Series Padres.
Is that Melinda
You think-
Hebel?
It absolutely
She's
is.
the one that just called me previous.
Oh,
to our-
nice. Yeah,
that's
well,
going on this podcast.
If we could get Donnie Wall back in the pen, I'd be all in on that.
Hey, Melinda, give me those tickets to the Red Sox game next weekend.
Also want to shout out Beth and Finbar, who are both watching and checking in as well. If you guys want to check in on the comments, we'll get to you.
Finbar, our good friend. If that's Beth Bishop, that's my grandmother, but I don't know if it's another Beth.
Oh, it's Beth Bishop, the beautiful.
89 years old and still plugging away. Thomas, any thoughts on the latest Padres happenings over the last week?
I'm not surprised by this because I really didn't think they had a good bullpen at the start of the season. I thought it was the weakest point of the team. I thought the starting pitching was young, but I thought it was very good, and I just didn't see them pick up somebody to help them along, maybe an effective long man, or as you guys said, a 7th or 8th inning slot pitcher. But and I just haven't seen them even improve it during the course of the season. Then maybe they're trying to slot these young guys in, and I get that. I think Munoz, will be an 8th inning type of effective pitcher. But I still don't understand the Carl Edwards Jr. transaction because he's had such a terrible time with the Cubs, and at one point he was expected to be their closer, and he just fallen off the tracks. I'm kind of confident, with Ballsy that he can get the job done with him, and obviously the first 2 appearances have been less than ideal, but I want to see what he looks like towards the end of September, and see where he has progressed at that point, because he does have a live arm.
He's just 2 years removed from being a huge part of that World Series winning Cubs squad in 2017. He was a big factor in the playoffs and through their entire run. I think it is the type of situation where you take a flyer on a guy who has had a ton of success and put him with the best pitching coach in baseball. And it may not be something, like you say, that's going to happen the first couple weeks after the trade deadline, but give him an off season together, give him spring training. And I think that could end up being one of those little pickups that just kind of flew by on trade deadline time. And then we look back and we go, wow, that really made a huge difference during the 2020 season and beyond.
Well, we were talking earlier before we went on air about our starting pitching, and that has been a bright spot as of late for the most part. You have fairly consistent seasons for Lauer and Lucchesi. ERA a little bit high, but then you have the youngsters in Paddock and especially Cal Quantrill as of late. So it is very promising to see that output and that performance at this point of the season.
Yeah, definitely. And guys taking their lumps at the big league level and doing it really young. Between 20 and 23, it seems like the majority of that starting staff is, and they're showing that they can get big league hitters out. And this is like a really long preview kind of tryout, see it's a lot of competition between the guys, and the strongest few are going to step to the forefront, and those other guys, they'll either get relegated to the bullpen or become trade pieces. And very excited about these young starters.
Certainly. So we look at the standings right now. NL wild card. Padres at 55 and 63, 7 games out of the race. There's pretty much zero chance they're going to make the playoffs.
Well, but the thing that I do is until we get to 500, I don't even want to look at the standings. I just think that's the benchmark of what this season is. I was hoping we could beat a 500 team this year. I wasn't thinking about the wild card. I was thinking if we're 500, we'll be close and it'll be
in the
exciting.
Conversation. Yeah.
But at this point, when we won those 3 games against Colorado over the weekend, I started looking at 500 as a distinct possibility. Like, hey, get on a little streak here, start winning a few series in a row, and then 500 becomes a thing. But right now, 8 games below 500. Technically, only 7 back in the wild card, but you got to keep climbing against yourself and winning series. It's not going to be easy when right now we've got Tampa in town for 2 more, and then we go to Philadelphia, to Cincinnati, who's been playing a lot better. Then we come home to the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Dodgers. Ouch. Yeah, so I don't know, man. 500 kind of seems like a pipe dream right now. So until we get into the legitimate 500 conversation, I'm not even thinking wild card.
Yeah, so we've played 118 games. So what's that? 43 more to go, roughly, if I'm doing my math correctly.
42, yeah.
Around that mark.
Sorry, 44.
44, yeah. Okay, so that would be a 35? Oh, no, I'm not. I'm gonna stop doing math.
The quick mental math.
We basically have to go like 26.
Someone will do the math and send us a
26 and 16, 25 and 18, something like that, to finish the year off at 500, 81 and 81. I can't see that happening, especially with some of the opponents you mentioned, but maybe if we play 500 ball the remainder of the season, we finish at 76 wins, 76 and 86. Would you take that, a 10-game improvement over last year?
10 more wins than a year ago. I would definitely take that. Again, I was hoping for like 82 and 80 was the number to me that was like, oh, if we could be 82 and 80, I'd be so fired up.
Proud of.
But if you go from 66 wins to 76 wins, that is a huge improvement. And then we have our mark for the following year, which I think would be another 10-game improvement. We'll have Manny in the organization for an entire offseason. Tatis is established at that point. There's just a lot less uncertainty going into next year than there was heading into this year and into this last offseason. So, yeah, I think let's try to get to 76. Anything above that, we'll be happy for this year.
Certainly. So,
also, Melinda says if we came to the game tonight to cheer, maybe they would win. So she's blaming it on us for not being at the ballpark tonight.
Okay.
I think it's Thomas's fault.
Yeah, it's always Thomas's fault. Likely not going to make the playoffs. Thomas, for you in the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks of the season here, what is your biggest storyline that you're watching for the Padres?
Good question. I think for me is to see if this little stretch of Margot is this the player that we traded for from Boston? Because if it is, then he's my center fielder moving forward, and then maybe eventually move him over to left field when Trammell gets up. But to me, I have to see if Margot can become that player that we expected him when we acquired him from the Red Sox. But I agree with Brian. I think it to me, the turnaround with this team will be in the pitching staff, and there's no doubt in my mind that Darren Balsley is the best pitching coach in baseball, and I think he's going to find a way. I mean, just look what he's done with Cal Quantrill. To me, I thought Cal Quantrill was a AAA pitcher, and to me, after watching him in his last four appearances, I think he could become a number 3 starter for this team moving forward. He's gotten it. He's throwing strikes, and that's all you can ask from a pitcher is just throw strikes and make the ball appear to be hittable, but it isn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's all Darren Balsley, and I agree with Brian. I think he's going to look at the bullpen, and I think he's starting to get his pieces in order. Now it's the learning stage right now, and sometimes the growing pains hurt badly, as last night is a clear example of that.
Getting Jose Castillo back will be a big thing. He's out for the season again after coming on and having one outing with the big league squad. But if he's healthy, Munoz, Michelle Baez, there's a lot of young pieces and a lot for him to work with. One thing that you said that was intriguing to me is the Manuel Margot piece. He has been such a standout for the last, I'd say, month and a half. And he hasn't had a sustained stretch like that in his big league career since the first time we had him. Like the first couple months as a Padre, he looked like he could be that guy. And then the last couple years, he's just kind of not done a ton to solidify himself in that role. So it's been such a question mark. But boy, if he could be the player that he's been for the last 60 days or so, then we may have our center field position figured out. And I love that he's getting the opportunity, and I've been really, really pleased with Margot's performance.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I've always loved his attitude, even when he's maybe not been performing well. He is definitely that guy on the team that's always going to bring the smile. So it is fulfilling to see him perform well. I also like what I'm seeing from Naylor in left field. He could certainly be a contributor down the line. I think for me the biggest story is what's going to become of the catcher position, and we've talked about this a little bit. Francisco Mejia performing very nicely when he's at bat. He's shown his power, but it just seems to be a little something missing with his communication with some of our pitchers. And so maybe that's just the growing pains of this season. You give him an off season, and maybe he becomes your starting catcher that starts 2/3 of the game, 2/3 of the games, and is going to be able to hit 250 to 275, and then Hedges with his 190 average can start once or twice a week. I don't know.
I think Mejia could honestly be a 300 hitter. I think 270 is probably on the low end of what his potential is. I think he could be a 290, 300 type guy. And Hedges, we know he's been in the league for, a half dozen years, and he's a 200 hitter. But he's a phenomenal catcher.
He's actually
of the ball.
the not only the best rated catcher in the league, like one of the top 5 defensive players league-wide.
It's his prowess behind the dish is unquestioned. It's just a matter of, can you afford to have another pitcher batting, which is essentially what he is when he comes up to the plate. You have the 8 and the 9 hole are almost guaranteed outs the way his offense has been trending. So, I don't know. That's such a tough one. That's the kind of stuff that makes me happy that I'm not the manager and having to make the decisions there.
We were talking about the Padres.
Yep.
We'll wrap it up with a look ahead at next year, since that's really the time we're anticipating where we know we might have a fighting chance for the playoffs. They released their schedule for next year, the 2020 schedule. We're playing the AL East as our interleague, the AL Central as our interleague opponent, I guess you could say. Anything that took your eye here with this schedule for next year, Brian?
I'm excited that the Dodgers are coming to town that final series of the season, because I feel like that's going to determine who wins the NL West. I think those are going to be the top 2 teams heading down the stretch, and I think we're going to win the division at home against the Dodgers, and I cannot wait for that.
I would say that's a bold prediction, but I have said that we're going to win the 2020 NL West. So I love that idea of it coming down to that last week.
Yep.
So I mentioned the AL Central. We will play Detroit on the road, but then Minnesota, the Chicago White Sox, and the Cleveland Indians at home. We will see our good buddy Fran Mil-Reyes return to Petco Park as a member of the Cleveland Indians. Pretty cool stretch in the middle of May. We play the Chicago White Sox for 3 games and then the Chicago Cubs for 4. So it's San Diego versus Chicago for a week there. There's going to be some rowdy fans at Petco, I think.
Yeah, it's going to get a little bit crazy, but nothing like having the Midwesterners try to come in and feel like they're taking over our ballpark. And at that point, we'll probably be about 15 games above 500. And
exactly.
We'll have 90% of the stands filled, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, a good-looking schedule. Not only the teams, Brian, but what you noticed when you first saw it.
Yeah.
We're seeing some of that golden brown.
Ooh, baby. Like I told you, the first time I saw the schedule, when I got that email, I just immediately saw the golden brown, and I couldn't even look at the schedule. I just thought it was so beautiful as a picture, and I was looking at it from wide. You got to tighten up to see who's playing who, and I just love the brown and gold so much, and it speaks Padres, and that gets me so fired up. The World Series can't come and go soon enough so that I can see the uniforms. They said they're not going to release them until the World Series is over, so oh my gosh, I'm dying in anticipation over here.
Thomas, I don't know if you've checked out the schedule at all, but I don't know if there's anything that stands out to you.
The one thing that stood out for me was that they're starting the season against Colorado, because for a long time I just remember them always open up their home schedule either against the Dodgers or the Giants. Yeah. So the Rockies are stocking up this season, and that's what I'm always excited about. My brothers and I, that's one time where we seem like we can all get together, and we really point towards opening day, because just starting downtown, it officially starts to us the baseball season. It's just trying to get to that opening day game, and we've been fortunate to go to about the last 4 in a row together. So it's really awesome. Exciting, and that's what I look forward to is that, because I always look to see when it is and what the date is. So then that's when we all get our emails next fired up to get those off days that people need, and then find out when the tickets are being sold.
Yeah, so we start off the year against Colorado on March 26th. I love that. Not even having to wait till April.
That is early this year. The whole calendar shifts forward a little bit. I think that'll be great.
Good stuff. So, obviously, here on the Connection, we're always interested in the happenings with local radio, local TV, and the sports conversations across the board. One thing we haven't gotten to is a show that we're big fans of, Darren Smith.
Yep.
And Marty Caswell. Formerly with 1090. 1090 gets shut down. It's like, what's their future going to be? They end up landing a week or two ago with 1360.
Yep.
Have you had a chance to listen to the show much, Brian?
I have. I was in Atlanta at the most of last week, so I didn't get a chance to listen a ton, but I did listen a little bit on the app. And then I listened yesterday, and I'm just so glad that Darren stayed local here in San Diego, because I know he had a ton of opportunities to go elsewhere. But he is such a good interviewer, and he gets such good guests on, and he asks them all the right questions. I heard him talking with Rocky Long yesterday, and I learned so much about Rocky Long and about this upcoming Aztecs football season that I did not know before. And it just felt like the perfect interview, and the type of interview that only Darren can give.
Sure.
And it just, man, it makes me so happy that he's back and that we have that, something that's been missing here locally for the last 4 months or so.
For sure. I think it gives way more substance to 1360 now. Certainly more relevant than they've been in the last couple of years. 97.3 The Fan, the flagship station of the Padres. They have Ben and Woods. So I think now with 1090 out of the picture for the most part, those are the two that both become relevant for the foreseeable future.
Yep.
Thomas, as you look at that situation, what are your thoughts on it?
In a way, I get a little bit sad, because to me, when Darren moved to 1360, that effectively, for me, I think ended the 1090 ever coming back. I know Scott Kaplan sent out a video saying, his situation is still up in the air, what he'll be doing. But I think that thought of 1090 ever coming back is gone, and that kind of is a little bit sad for me, because that was a station that got me involved here with San Diego sports, and I did like all of the announcers from when John Katera was there to obviously Ben and Woods, and when Scott and BR in the morning.
Yep.
So it kind of like seeing that ending was a little bit sad, but I agree with both of you guys. Seeing Darren Smith back on the air, and especially in San Diego, was key. I did see when he substituted for Rich Eisen, and he looked a little bit rusty, but he once the first segment was over, he was right back to being Darren Smith again, and he is he's by far the best sports talk host in this town, and it's good to see him back on the air, and especially and on the air with a station that has has pretty much Aztec sports. So it's gonna be good to see him basically grill those coaches during the season, and it should be fun to watch.
Yep,
I agree. Well, let's finish it up for our last segment here with the greatest sport of all time, the NFL.
NFL football.
NFL football. Several storylines. We're less than a month away from the start of the season. The biggest story this week, Antonio Brown with the Oakland Raiders didn't want to change out his helmet, and basically fought against it pretty hard, but a ruling was put down where he would have to use one of the new certified helmets. I didn't really understand the situation all that much, why he would want to do that, but I guess when you've played for a decade and you have a helmet you're super comfortable with, you don't want to give it up.
Yeah. A helmet is something that's such like a personal protective thing that I could understand not wanting to give it up. But I never really believed that he was going to retire. He's like, I just won't play. If you don't let me wear this helmet, I'm going to retire. I didn't know if he was trying to posture and hope that threat would change something in the CBA. They're like, oh, we got to go switch this because Brian's going to Brown, is going to retire over this. Tom Brady doesn't he has to switch his helmet. He doesn't like the helmet he's wearing, but he's dealing with it. And you practice something that AB is not doing right now. He's not practicing. That was so weird with his frostbite on his feet, and there's so much drama with him right now that I don't know if it's like just follows the Raiders, if it follows him, if it follows Hard Knocks or what, but it is a dramatic situation. I never really believed he was going to retire.
No, I didn't either, and he's definitely one of those diva wide receivers, and it's just so weird to see because he had so much success in Pittsburgh, and he'll probably have some continued with the Raiders. But he has been the best wide receiver for the last 5 years. Maybe him and Julio Jones you put in that category. And I just see this transition towards the Raiders, how he kind of was at odds with Juju Smith-Schuster in Pittsburgh as well as Big Ben. I just see him being on the back end of his prime, I guess, which I don't like seeing because he's always my first-round fantasy pick. And I don't even know if he's in my top 10 these days.
Yeah, and it's always so dangerous with the wide receiver going from one team to another, because even someone like a Vincent Jackson, when he was with Phillip Rivers, you could count on him being one of the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. He goes to Tampa Bay, and we pretty much never hear from him again. He put up a few good games here and there just because he's an amazing athlete, but he was on a trajectory to potentially have like a Hall of Fame caliber career. And then you leave the quarterback who is so rock solid and makes you look really good and go down to a situation that has, Derek Carr has not been to the playoffs. I think he's very talented, but I think it's a total X factor on what happens with AB now with Derek Carr. Ben Roethlisberger, you can like him or hate him, but super reliable, and he's going to put guys in good position, give you a chance to make plays. Some quarterbacks are scared to do that, and a guy like AB needs a quarterback who's going to throw the ball when you feel like you shouldn't. So I don't know if he's going to be the same player just simply because of the change in teams.
Mm-hmm. Well, so speaking of the Raiders, they were obviously the team we hated the most here as Chargers fans. With the Chargers moving to LA and us, kind of trying to find a team or just becoming neutral with how we view the NFL, has your hatred of the Raiders lessened at all over the last couple years?
Yeah, it has.
It has for me, I think.
Yeah, it totally has. Not to the point where I like them or want to cheer for them. Same thing with the Broncos, just because those were always kind of the teams. When the Chargers were good, those other teams were good.
Yeah.
And then when the Chargers were bad, the Chiefs were good. So I never really felt that connection of hatred toward the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then we've talked about here on the podcast about how we like Patrick Mahomes, we like what the Chiefs are doing. That's kind of been the team I follow right now and I'm watching. I feel like I have a connection to them because of the AFC West days, but I also don't have a hatred of them, which is so weird. But I don't hate the Raiders and Broncos as much as I used to, but it's still not full cleansing and I can go be a fan of them.
I agree. With the Chargers leaving, some of my hatred spread towards them.
Yep.
I think Derek Carr coming to the Raiders made me hate them less. He just seems like a pretty good guy and not as hateable as a Jeff Hostetler during our days in the 90s.
Yep.
But, and they got AB, they've got former Charger Tyrell Williams, who I always liked watching play, So, like you said, I'm not cheering for them, but, I don't have a ton of hatred against them.
I have a cool Tyrell Williams story for another day.
Okay.
Okay.
Noted.
Yep.
So I looked at some rankings for fantasy as I'm getting ready for my 3 leagues. Got to do better in them this year. Antonio Brown was ranked 10th or 11th in most wide receiver rankings. Top 5 are DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas of the Saints, OBJ, and Julio Jones.
Yep.
If you're picking a wide receiver in the first round, who you got out of those 5 or any others? Julio Jones has been steadfast.
Julio
the last 5 years.
is so good, and I've had him a couple of the last few years, and he's just so steady. And I know he started last year off a little bit slow, but then he came on and was fire, the best receiver for the second half of the NFL season. OBJ, again, a wide receiver moving situations. I don't know how that's going to play out, so I would stay away from him. Michael Thomas, I don't know. You get all that money and maybe you don't train as hard or push as hard because you don't want to get hurt and lose it. I don't know. I feel like Julio's probably the guy who you can just put him in for. He's going to have a solid season. He's got a good quarterback, a good system. They exploit him around. He's so freaking strong around the goal line too that he gets a lot of looks in the red zone. And I don't know, if you're giving me have to pick one receiver, it's Julio.
Thomas?
I like Julio Jones, but I think it's Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas had by far the best production per reception, at least in fantasy. I mean, his numbers were amazing. But one guy to keep us as a sleeper sort of is Devontae Adams of the Green Bay Packers. That guy always gets like in the mid to high 20s every week.
Yep.
And if Rodgers is on this, this campaign to make himself the best quarterback in the league, and he has now a head coach that wants that will kind of make it more of a passing game than ever before, then he's going to have big numbers with Rodgers because he's Rodgers' one of go-to guys. So watch out for him as far as the fantasy. You could probably get him in a third or fourth round selection.
Who you got, AB?
Man, I love all those guys. My only thing about Julio Jones, last year he went like 6 or 7 games without getting a touchdown because they double-teamed him for days.
And that's when I traded for him. And then he went off.
So, yeah, like 8 touchdowns.
Absolutely.
I like a couple of those guys mentioned. I love DeAndre Hopkins with a healthy Deshaun Watson at quarterback.
Yep.
And then Juju Smith.
That's what I was. He's kind of the X factor.
He performed, I think, just about as well as him last year. And now, without him there, I would consider taking him in the first round.
He's got big play potential for sure. And now that the offense is going to run through him, that'll be interesting.
How much adjustment do you think you'll have to make going from the secondary receiver down to be the number one receiver? Because you're going to get different looks in coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something he won't be seeing. But if they were able to, be creative with getting Antonio Brown looks, and I don't see why they couldn't with him.
Yeah, and he's that type of dynamic athlete where you can give him a handoff here and there or run those swing passes and a lot of things that Antonio did really well. So.
Well, good stuff on the fantasy. I know we could talk much longer, but thinking bigger picture, I say we start getting the pot boiling here with the connection.
Down, baby.
Have some fun with fantasy. Always open to ideas, but we spoke about the Survivor League last week. I say we go all in.
I'm all in on the Survivor League. Yep.
Again, the Survivor League, all you have to do, I think it's, fairly simple. Even if you don't know a lot about fantasy football, come on and join the party. You pick one team in the NFL to win each week. Once you pick them, you can't use them again, assuming your pick wins and you survive to see another week. I say we go with like a $20 pot.
Yep.
I've done other ones that are like $40 or $50. Might be a little steep in the early goings here, but hey, if we get 40, 50 people, that's close to $1,000. Good way to get the connection out there.
Yeah.
In front of some people's faces.
I like it. I'm in.
All right, who are you taking in the first week without knowing any of the matches?
Wait, I have to give my now?
I'm taking the Chiefs.
I was going to say Kansas City. Damn it.
I don't know who they're playing.
Thomas.
Canton Bulldogs.
What team did you say?
I haven't even looked at the schedule.
Okay, who are your
Duke. Duke.
AFC Championship and NFC Championship teams?
Oh.
Right, so 4 teams that you're Chiefs and Patriots.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Patriots, obviously, they have to be in because it's just the Patriots.
Kansas City and Dallas are going to be in the Super Bowl.
Whoa.
Okay, so I have Kansas City in the AFC. I'm going to say, shoot. Yeah, I don't like anybody besides the Patriots.
I know.
Andrew
don't even
Luck's
think about
saying
that one team.
I'm going. This is not a very educated guess. I don't want to say.
So
it
let's
right now.
say outside of New England, you can't pick New England. Who are your teams in the AFC Championship?
I might take the Chiefs and the Texans.
Houston, yeah, that's who I was thinking too. or whoever comes out of the.
It's gonna be the Chiefs and the
I was thinking
Steelers.
whoever comes out of the
Chiefs and
north.
Steelers. Oh, the North.
I think this. I
That's
think this
always
is the
the
year
Browns.
for redemption
Yeah,
for
maybe
the
the
Steelers.
The Browns will just be happy to make the playoffs,
Yeah.
kind of like next year's Padres. I wouldn't pick them for the championship game just yet, but I like Chiefs Texans. You like Chiefs Steelers?
Yeah.
Yep.
NFC, I'm going with the Saints getting back there, getting
Okay.
to the Super Bowl as well, and the Eagles getting back to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I think
With Carson Wentz healthy for a full season.
I think the Rams will go back to back to the pack a little bit, and normally that's what happens with a team that loses the Super Bowl. The Patriots, that never happens to, but they're the X factor. So, yeah, I think the Rams, we could pencil them in for about 9 or 10 wins, but not the run that they went on last year. I like the Saints, especially that little chip on their shoulder that they've got. The NFC South is so tough to predict. I mean, if Cam Newton's really good, Carolina could be solid. I've always liked Atlanta. I think there's a handful of teams in that division that could, if they win that division, whoever wins that division, I think is a favorite to get to the NFC Championship.
Tomas?
I agree with you. I think it's going to be the Cowboys versus the Eagles in the NFC title game.
All NFC
all
East
NFC
battle
East.
there.
Yeah.
Good
So
stuff.
someone's going on the road the whole way.
I might amend my predictions as we get closer to the season.
Yeah.
This is the elementary prediction session. We'll go with our official predictions like a week before the season
Yeah.
starts.
I like it.
Okay, that's going to wrap it up for episode 6. As always, live here from McGregor's. Next, what's today? The 13th? 13th.
Yeah, 13.
Next week, Wednesday the 21st, the
Yeah.
23rd anniversary party here at McGregor's. I'm going to start talking to some people, see if we can get in on that action.
I think we got to do it. Yeah,
We'll see
it's
how
gonna
that
be a
goes,
party.
but I say we should do it.
Have a couple of adult beverages on the pod for the first time. Yep.
There you go.
I like it.
All right, it's been fun. Thanks so much, Thomas
Thank
Conroy,
you.
my producer. Brian Vilvin, my co-host. Andy Bishop signing off. Goodbye.